James Francis Dunn was born on the 13th of July, 1993, in this city. A Scouser, and an awesome man who we're going to explore a little bit of today. When he was born in Liverpool in 1993, just after he was born, the doctors and his parents, Leslie and Kenny, noticed bits of skin missing off his hands and feet. A couple of hours of consultation, a couple of weeks in intensive care, and he was diagnosed with a genetic condition called dystrophic epidermolysis bullosa. We'll just call it EB. It's a big, complicated illness. It basically means that he was born without the collagen in his skin, which means that his skin would break off and peel and blister with friction. It's a horrific condition. However, this was not a normal human being. This young man went on to live a remarkable life, a really quite wonderful life. He didn't let this condition beat him. On the contrary, James lived life absolutely to the full. He did all the things that normal children do. He went to a normal school, played wheelchair football, traveled all over the world, met some incredible people. If I could do 2 hours of telling his stories from Vegas, from South Africa. So many people were touched by this young man. Absolutely incredible. He also was raised by his family with a sense of optimism, a sense of love, a sense of purpose. He was not beaten by EB. In fact, it really amplified the very best parts of him. It made him more than humanly possible. He did more things with this condition than many of us do without a serious condition. I'm going to let James just introduce some of his philosophies just for a second.
I've learned to focus on the positive points of the condition, the happiness I have in life. You know, EB isn't me. You know, it doesn't define who I am. It's a small part of me, and you know that it's 10% of me. The other 90% is a whole lot. It's a whole different aspect. You know, there's a lot more things to me apart from EB.
What a guy. That was filmed about 18 months before he left us. Really quite remarkable. And his journey, I think, is one that we should celebrate, we should share, we should talk about. A couple of years before he did leave us, he was part of a TV show called Big Life Fix. And he really touched the heart of the entire nation during Big Life Fix. I remember sitting on the sofa and watching it with my wife and thinking, whoa, this guy is amazing, absolutely wonderful. I've got another short clip just from Big Life Fix because I think it will really show you the kind of person that we're talking about right now.
Oh, wow!
Amazing.
Cool van, James. Very impressed to see you out and driving.
Thanks.
Is it sort of particularly unique people with your condition to drive?
I was the first one to have in a wheelchair with EB
Wow.
to drive in this country.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because I'm straight strong-minded and you wanted to do it, so I was going to do it.
You mean strong-minded as stubborn?
Yeah, sometimes.
You must feel your body lets you down.
Yeah, I do. That's it, honestly, you've hit the nail on the head. I do. I just wish I've got the brain of a normal person. I wish I had the body of a normal person.
You haven't got the brain of a normal person. You're far more mature and creative and thoughtful than the average person. You're certainly a lot more mature than the average 22-year-old, I would humbly suggest.
Oh,
and
thank you.
You know, what to develop to that stage, frankly, as a person, with everything you've gone through at the same time it's unimaginable.
I think Simon really sums James up quite eloquently during that clip from the TV show. I've spent time with Jude subsequently since the TV show, and his stories are quite amazing. His eyes twinkle when he talks about the job that they did. During the TV show, they created a very special piece of technology for James, a camera. James had been getting into photography for a while, and it was something that really gave him a distraction from the pain and the symptoms of EB. He enjoyed creating memories. He enjoyed creating portraits. And what they did in the TV show is they created a camera or adapted his camera that he could use much more easily and much more accessibly. It's a beautiful piece of machinery. It's absolutely wonderful. And James really took that philosophy to heart. He didn't talk about taking photos. He talked very eloquently about making memories, about leaving pictures for the world to enjoy. The camera really gave him the opportunity to do a lot more than that. Just in case you've not seen any of these pictures, there we go. James met some remarkable people. He photographed with this camera some remarkable people, and every single one of those remarkable people will talk about how much more remarkable James was than them. He really touched them in incredible ways. Tom Holland, the young man that plays Spider-Man in the Marvel movies now, speaks incredibly fondly of his time with James. The Duchess of Sussex, or Wessex, whichever one it is, again, speaks incredibly wonderfully about this young man. She stops being regal when she talks about James. She starts looking at him just as a human being, as an equal. Just brilliant. That's my favourite one in the middle at the bottom, which I found when I was digging around in the archives. And just that little man, Danny DeVito, whose eyes lit up when he saw James. And this is really the start of where me and James's paths collide, where my life changed, where me and James really went on quite an interesting journey. This is the kind of the turning point, certainly in my life. It was just after Big Life Fix had been on the TV, and James had been introduced to me by some of the designers on the TV show. Our worlds really collapsed into each other. At the time, I was running an artificial intelligence company, and we were using technology to document knowledge and wisdom. I came up to Liverpool, I met James. We did not form a relationship that was based on business. It was evident very, very quickly that we were going to become very firm friends. I didn't even see a man with a disability. I just saw a really awesome human being who really energized me, who had the most incredible thoughts in his head. Something struck me very quickly, which is when you take some senses away from somebody, other senses really are heightened. James's brain was not the brain of a 22-year-old man when I met him. This was the brain of a 70-year-old man. He'd been living in dog years. He'd been living 3 to 1 because of his condition, and we really got on very, very quickly. He was very curious about the kind of work we were doing. He was very curious about data, about AI. He started to ask me some really complicated questions about legacy. He started to ask me questions about where he fitted into the technology world and where technology could start to really give him back some mobility or some options, or something he was very adamant that he wanted to do was write the story of his life, but part of the condition meant that he had really no hands, so typing was complicated. The friendship developed, the technology conversations developed, and then a couple of years, or about a year into our relationship, we were on stage together at a conference.
The only thing which stops me from fulfilling my full potential in life is my body. I'm not happy with it because it causes me pain. It's trapped in a wheelchair. It takes me several hours to get out and do stuff my peers do. I can't just wake up in the morning and get outside and start my day. I've got to wait 4 hours and then go out after I've done all my bandages and stuff. So yeah, and like I said before, it creates a barrier between me and able-bodied people. So if I could one day just be me, have my personality, but without the stupid body that means that, and you may think I'm weird for saying this, but this body means nothing to me. I've got no attachment to my body at all. Yeah, if I could put that into something like a piece of a machine or a robot, whatever, that'd be amazing.
I did not put these ideas in James's head. He'd been studying the work that we've been doing, he'd been studying technology, he'd been online, he'd really been looking at the world through a very positive, very big lens, and started to come out with some very profound things, amazing things. Shortly after we'd had this conversation, we started developing a piece of technology to help James document his memories. It was a smart home device, the kind of things you can buy for £30, put them in his home, put them in our place down in London, and then he'd spend time recording from voice into text, into the database, his memories and thoughts. And over kind of 6 or 7 months, we were really able to collect quite an astonishing amount of information and wisdom from this young man. It's a really quite simple thing that we were doing. We'd been doing it for a while outside of this sphere, outside of healthcare. We've been doing it for banks and things like that. James saw the idea that he could do it for himself. This was a good way of documenting everything that was in there in a small device, and that's what we did. The algorithm that we started to develop with James, mainly over Skype and telephone and emails and text messages, like he really pushed us, and he was quite a hard-working individual. And when I say hard-working, we did the hard work, and he told us what to do, which is typical of James, but God bless him. We were able to start grouping the content that we'd been finding from James, and his pictures, and his memories, and his good thoughts, and his philosophies. We were able to start grouping those, and then use machine learning, a type of technology that starts to fill in some of the gaps, to really try and paint a kind of broader picture of James. It was quite wonderful, quite remarkable. And to be part of that story, again, is quite brilliant. We made it possible for people in other countries to have basic conversations with this AI corpus of information that James had started to create. And it was about allowing people, what he wanted was other people with the condition to be able to have a conversation with him at any time of the day about coping mechanisms, about strategies, about his philosophies, ask him questions about his life. And we started to really put a kind of an interface on top of James's thoughts and memories, allow people to access his pictures in a way that was much more conversational, which I think everybody that knew James would agree was so James. He loved to talk. He's a talker. Then in August 2017, something really quite strange happened. We were again at a conference together, and we met a company who had a machine called Bo. It's a really beautiful piece of robotics. It's quite a strange end to the story. Again, I looked at it, I didn't know what was quite going on there. Watch this video of James. We managed to, for some reason, capture the first time he met the robot.
Is that doing it on its own, or you doing that?
At the moment I'm controlling it, but usually we allow it to be autonomous in stores and public spaces, so it kind of sits in a confined area, and then you don't want it to go everywhere because you'll just end up finding in the back of the store somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm stuck.
Or it happens what is called.
Yeah.
There's a look at the beginning of that video. I've watched it so many times, not because of the technology. There's a look on James's face, and it's called hope. And it's a really wonderful thing that technology can give people hope. And he saw the opportunity to put all this knowledge and these photos and all these memories that he'd been collecting and recording and storing inside something that would break down barriers, that he could send around the world or could go to shopping centers and have conversations with people. He saw that. I didn't see it, he saw it. The joke was, when we talked about it together afterwards, the joke was it was a better body than the one he was given. And the irony of that, we did chuckle about a lot. I want one of those, because that's way better than this. And then the serious side of that was you can send it to places that he wasn't able to go to, which we did. And the reactions on some people was quite magical. Children especially did not see somebody with a disability. They saw a machine and they went up and they learned a huge amount, and it was quite beautiful. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And it was all James's idea. It was James's wisdom. It was James's direction to be able to send some of these things out into the world. James left us on the 7th of April, 2018, and I miss him a lot. I miss him greatly. We formed a very deep friendship. He's a remarkable man. But I think his journey is really only just beginning. And I mean that, and we feel really privileged to have spent this time together working on something that we both bonded over, but more importantly, getting to know each other. And he is more than data, but his data has given him something, I think, way more profound than most of us will achieve in our life. He's done a lot. He's done a lot. He's left a lot of ideas worth sharing. He's left a lot of legacy that I think has touched so many people and continues to touch so many people. Somebody asked me the other day whether or not I talk to the AI version of James, and I said to them quite honestly and openly, even as a technologist, I don't need to, because when I walk the dog in the evenings, there's a wall that I sit on, and I sit down there for 5 minutes if I've had a really rubbish week, and I look up, and I don't need a robot to talk to. I can still speak to James, and he's still here, and he's still with us. I'm going to play you a video just to finish. If, at the end of the video, you feel inspired by James, do me a favor, be Liverpool, take the roof off this place, because he's around and he will hear it. He should have been on this stage doing this talk today. I feel really privileged to have been asked to do it on his behalf. Watch this video and then make some noise for a remarkable friend.
surround yourself by loving, happy people, and you remember, even if you're having a total rubbish day, that you always smile. You're not only going to help yourself and make yourself feel better, but you're going to help the person you smile to. So even if you're walking down the street in London one day and you see someone that looks a bit down, give them a smile. They might not say, you know, oh, that really cheered me up, but you know in your heart that that's going to have an impact on that person, and they're most likely going to remember that for the rest of their day, and it could help them. You know, they might have had a really bad time in work. Smile at them, make the day better, and smile for yourself too. No matter how hard life is, you can't focus on it, because you're just gonna keep going down and down and down. You need to go up and up and up and smile and be positive.